Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of SRE 101, a podcast about all things infrastructure and reliability. My guest today is Pranay Prateek, the co founder of SigNoz. Pranay, I'm very excited to have you with me today. Welcome to the show.
Hey Raghav, thanks for reaching out to me and excited to be here.
So, let's start with some introductions, Pranay. Um, Tell us a bit about yourself. Like, what has your journey been like?
I'm Pranay. I'm engineer by training. Uh, Studied electrical engineering, then went on to do MBA at IIM Ahmedabad, and then realized that MBA is not for me. So came back to tech and did product marketing at Microsoft. Product management at Microsoft, and then after that, I was leading a product at a startup, and that's where we came across this problem around observability. And yeah, that's where we started thinking about SigNoz, and I've been doing SigNoz for the last 2 years and absolutely enjoying it.
And so, what do you do when you're not actually working on tech?
I read a lot. I read lots of philosophy. So I don't know if you're aware, there's a branch of philosophy called existential philosophy. I sort of go very deep into that. I do a lot of running. I run marathons, etc., and trekking. And I read lots of sci-fi. So Isaac Asimov, Foundation series. Generally, either you are building tech or you're thinking about what could be the future in tech.
I can totally relate to that part. Yes. So, um, in my entire career as an SRE, I've been an SRE for most of my career, and as a software engineer, I've dealt with a lot of different tools, techniques, concepts in general. Right? Every place, every company that I've worked at has a unique set of problems that it has, but observability is the first problem everywhere. Right? So, what is observability? Like, what is it according to you, and why should I care about it?
Yeah, so if you think about it, observability is basically about asking questions to systems and then trying to understand the state of the system, right? I think this term came from electrical engineering and control theory originally, and I am an electrical engineer by training, so I've gone into all that, right? But fundamentally, if you think about it, lots of our lives currently depends upon machines, right? Like they spend a lot of time in applications. We are, both of us are talking about Zoom, which is running in some server somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And fundamentally, digital technologies, software has enabled a lot of human interactions, and it's still in the beginning. Like if you think about it, we just started in like 1990s, internet came, and like 2000 times the dot-com boom came, and like we're just 20 years into this internet technology, right? And uh, when you're spending so much time in machines, like interacting with machines, interacting with software, you need to understand like what's going on there, right? I think that's the fundamental problem which you're trying to understand and solve. And this is true for any system, like not just software. Like if you think about human beings as systems,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, uh, basically we go to doctors if something goes wrong, right? So if you think human beings are systems, if something goes wrong, you start sneezing, you start coughing. Those are the symptoms you see, but they are like underlying root cause, which are there, which are causing the system, right? So maybe there's some virus which is affecting your body, which is causing that uh, sneezing or like coughing, right? And then you go to doctors to sort of try to figure out, hey, like what's the root cause, right? And essentially SREs are the doctors of the machines, right? Like
Yeah.
the all the software systems we run, right? And and it's like for any system which is a complex system, right? It's essential, especially if we want to understand like why is it running, how is it running, and if you want to have predictability on like, hey, is it gonna be running well, right? So that's essentially what observability is. Can you ask questions around it? Can you, if something goes wrong, can you ask questions which will help you fix it? Can you get proactive alerts on what's gonna go wrong, right? And for example, in humans, like it's just mapping to humans, right? So proactive alerts are like you go to do your tests, medical tests, and then you get reports, and then you sort of see that's what's happening, and then that may act as alert for you. Or your body starts showing symptoms that, hey, I am feeling tired or I am feeling distracted. Those are symptoms which sort of help you understand that, hey, something is gonna go wrong, right? So humans have lots of things built in, while machines are still pretty new. Like if you think fundamentally, software systems are like 25 years old. Human beings have been evolving for like at least like 4 or 5 million years now. So we have like much better observability and like being able to tell the world that, hey, something is gonna go wrong, right? And machines don't have that as of now. Like machines, if you don't have observability systems, they don't tell you that, hey, like something is gonna go wrong. Look into me, or like take me doctor.
Exactly.
And, like, humans are much more advanced. Humans are much more advanced, right? So that's why you need observability, because machines are still at early stage. Like software systems are still at a very early stage. They are not self-healing. Humans have, I don't know why I'm going into this sort of diving into like comparing it to humans, but yeah. So humans have self-healing, right? Machines like software systems today don't have self-healing. Humans have immunity systems, which sort of protect against external issues. Machines are sort of today defenseless.
We have to build those immunity systems in the machines. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, right. So why do you need observability systems in machines which are running software? Because machines still are at a very early stage of their development. And SREs and observability systems are sort of helping them survive in an environment which is very uncertain, where things are going wrong when customers interact with these machines. They send different types of data, network connections go out, machines go down, power connections go down, some attacks happen, and then machines are today defenseless. So we need observability systems to at least tell that, hey, like something is going to go wrong, or like what are the indicators on which we can understand that, hey, like what's going wrong.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting perspective actually, because when somebody says observability to me, I just start thinking about it in the traditional DevOps terms. But you're actually right. I mean, observability is something that we need everywhere, anywhere, any system that needs that, where we need to see what's going on, whether it's DevOps infrastructure, or a human being, or a stock market, or a flight which is currently mid-air. Any kind of system where we need to see what's going on, that is observability. And that makes total sense.
Yeah, so if you think about it, like before software systems which came in, like humans have invested a lot of time in designing machines, right? And that's where the whole concept of control theory, etc., evolved. And I think with machines, which is like, I mean, physical machines, factories, etc., we still have like much better systems, like control systems, etc., in place. So that's where observability comes from, and like we are trying to apply those concepts in software engineering now. And software engineering as such is a very new discipline. So yeah, we all are still learning.
Exactly. So Pranay, SigNoz, it's an observability ecosystem that you're building out in the open, right? I'm looking at the GitHub repository right now, and you guys have like 13,000 stars on it. So clearly it's a big deal. So tell me more about what is it like? What is SigNoz, and like, is it making my life easier, for example?
Yeah, sure. If you start using it, it will. Yeah, so SigNoz is an open source observability platform. With what we discussed today, right? That, hey, like if you're running something, some software systems in open, you need observability. I didn't know about this problem earlier, right? Like in my engineering time, I was not introduced to it. But like when I was leading product at a startup here before starting SigNoz, that's where I came across this problem that, hey, so I was leading the product team, but I had Eng reporting into me, and like we didn't have good observability systems in place. We had basic Prometheus and some Elastic, but like not sort of complete observability systems in place, right? And so whenever something would go wrong, like I would start getting call from customer care that, hey, the payment link which is there in the app is not working, and some customer has paid money and then he has not received sort of the service he's supposed to, right?
I am that customer, yes.
Yeah. So and like customer care team doesn't know, and like I get a call, and then I go to my engineering team and then say, hey, like what's happening, right? And then we try to, and then it seems that some API is failing. And then we have to sort of go into war room mode and then try to figure out. So I have like 8 of my best engineers in a room sitting together and like trying to see, okay, is this the cause of the problem? Is this the cause of the problem? Is this the cause of the problem? Right? And it's like a hair and fire situation. Management is like looking into it. Our customers are feeling the pain, and like we are getting 1 stars in Google App Store, right? So you lose revenue, you lose brand credibility.
Exactly.
So that's where I realized that it's a very important problem, especially if your business is fundamentally software driven, right? So we need better observability systems in place. And today, even like when we are in 2023, I don't think all companies have good observability systems in place, right? Many people just do. I think Prometheus is the starting place, or like people just do with logs. But metrics and sort of logs are like very basic. Like you just get some metrics, but hey, like what do you do with that, right? So that's where. So when we were there, we thought that hey, like there are some things in open source like Prometheus, Elastic, but there are like other set of tools like Datadog and Neuralink, which are like much more advanced, right? And like had much more capabilities. And so basically the question we asked ourselves was that, hey, like, can you provide the same level of experience as these tools in open source, right? And why open source? Because we fundamentally thought like as developers ourselves, we always like when you start to try to use any product, you always start with a product which is open source so that you have a community around it. You get more understanding of like what are the features there, and then you can just play around it, right? So that seemed to us like a natural thing which should be there. A great observability tool in open source, which is supported by a community, and sort of that's what we started to build, right? So if you see SigNoz today, it has like metrics, traces, and logs all integrated in one. So you can, for example, go from metrics to traces, see the logs of it, see the corresponding exceptions coming in the tool. Basically, you can narrow down the problem space much faster. Like so, as of now, we are not at a stage where we can like sort of do self-healing of like that's the goal like in 5 years. But but like at least the goal now is to how much can you narrow down the problem space. So if some problem starts happening, right? Like hey, my API is failing, and then I have like 50 microservices, 5 stacks of code, 10 teams looking into it. How do I narrow down the problem? So today the goal of the product is, hey, like rather than looking into 30 things, you should look into 3 things, and probably this will solve the problem, right? So reducing the MTTR, like mean time to resolution, is the core goal today. And we think as we add more and more sort of signals there, it will get much more efficient, right? So yeah, so that's what we're trying to build with SigNoz, and like initial community adoption is good, but let's see how it goes.
It is actually one of my favorite features in an observability system when the system links me between a log and an event and everything. Like if I click on a log, the corresponding event is there, the corresponding metrics at that time may also present. That makes my job so much easier rather than having like 5 different tabs open and trying to narrow down to the same timeline just on different features of the system. So yeah, and in general, I've always admired open source software, observability systems even more so because I have worked in companies in the past where we have adopted the SaaS solutions to these monitoring systems, right? They are expensive. They are very expensive, and so there have been news, all about how companies have spent millions of dollars in just monitoring tools, observability tools. So yeah, open source again is very refreshing in this regard.
There are more things happening. So I think people have realized this problem. For example, there's a project in CNCF ecosystem called OpenTelemetry, which is sort of getting a lot of adoption now. And what that does basically is commoditize the instrumentation layer. So SigNoz is day one built on OpenTelemetry, right? And what that sort of does for us is, and because we are an open source tool, like backend on top of that, it helps us sort of leverage the OpenTelemetry ecosystem and build on top of that, right? And it also helps, like, to your point of like vendors, like traditional closed source SaaS vendors are charging a lot. I think we are seeing a movement where people are realizing that, and then they are moving to tools which are sort of don't get them vendor locked in, because there have been stories where people get vendor locked in, and because it's so core to your product, like it's very difficult to move out. So what OpenTelemetry has done is that it has commoditized that layer. So if you instrument with OpenTelemetry, and then any any backend like SigNoz which listens to it, you can use that, right? So it becomes very easy to change the visualization provider or the backend provider. So we think that's where sort of the ecosystem is going. That hey, can we like standardize on the instrumentation layers, the data formats, and then give people more choice on what backend or visualization layer you can use. And that sort of brings in like a healthy competition among players, and also sort of helps the practitioners to get more choice, right? Because if you have
Exactly.
standard data formats, then more tooling will come upon it, right? So we are seeing new tools coming up around analyzing tracing data, building automated tests out of tracing data, and that all happens because you like now have a standard data format, which if you sort of use like proprietary SDKs, that sort of innovation gets logged only to that particular vendor, which sort of which is the advantage of an open ecosystem, or like sort of a community-based ecosystem, right?
Yeah, and this ultimately means the customer wins, right? So it's always the good thing to have. Talking about the mean time to resolution, but when you're in the middle of a production outage, the SRE culture is all about remaining calm and composed, trying to figure out the problem. But the first priority is to actually put out the fire and then figure out the rest of the root cause and everything, right? That's what MTTR is all about, putting out the fire first and foremost. So have you been in a production fire where observability literally saved the day?
So I think I have been the other side of the story, where when we didn't have observability, we had to go through a lot of pain, right? So as I was mentioning earlier, where like we had a case where I think some of our payment, like the final payment API, was like working, like it would say success, but it would not sort of actually trigger and enable the service, right? And what that does, and like, so we are a product where like people from rural like tier 2 towns in India would pay like 300-400 bucks and expect a service, right? And because like 300 bucks is very important for them, and many times they are trusting a digital product for the first time, right? And sort of they have inherent distrust, like I don't want to sort of pay a digital provider, but because the value for the product was high, and sort of the product which was convincing, they paid for it, right? But now if you don't get a service, like they are just furious. They're like, hey,
and they'll never come back to you. They'll never come back to you.
They will never come back to us. They will say bad things about us in Google App Store, or like social media. So I think that's where people don't realize, and like I have seen this from a product perspective, because it becomes very close to customers, right? So, and I think this is something which is very important to understand, like empathize with the user, right? So like what an API failing can lead this guy to believe that, hey, this for the first time, this guy tried to pay for a digital product, figured out credit card or debit card, and like, or UPI payment. And so this is the India story, right? And then made a payment, and then he didn't get the service, right? And he's like, all these startups are fraud. You should not pay digitally. You should only trust cash. And like, hey, he will advise 10 of your friends that, hey, don't pay digitally, always pay cash, right? So especially in a developing country like ours, where it's like a huge swath of people who are not sort of interacted daily with the digital products, right? Like we and you have more trust to such products because we have like done 100 transactions and maybe 99 went through, 95 went through. So we know, okay, like these people are trustworthy, right? And when this payment doesn't go through for like product or engineering team, it's like, okay, hey, this API failed. Okay, this is like, okay, fine, right?
Yeah.
But from a
For
customer
the person
perspective,
on that side,
yeah. So from a person, from that person's perspective, it's like, boss, I will never pay digitally again, right? So
yeah.
and from a company perspective, it's like, hey, we put so much effort to get good ratings on App Store, Google Play Store, and then if we lose because of like our API is not working well, like why not just fix that, which is like very under control, right? Because as
Exactly.
engineers, we know that like software systems, though they can like behave erratically sometimes, it's mostly under our control. Understanding customers and like why they would pay, etc., is like much more tougher. Like it's much more of an art, right? So yeah, so I think I have been on that side, and like when you try to debug a issue, like time is of an essence, right? So this guy, imagine this guy is on a call with the customer care. He is like, the customer care guy is the brave guy who's sort of fielding the questions that, hey,
Exactly.
don't
Yeah.
worry, our team is working on it. And then he is passing the sort of heat to me, the product manager, that, hey, like, why are we not able to fix this? This is like, this should just work, right? And then here we are looking into like 10 possible ways why it could have gone wrong, and not being able to figure out like, okay, has this gone wrong, right? And sometimes, and I think I remember it was just some SQL. Ultimately, it's always some database or something like that. Like some SQL table rejecting our queries or something like that. It was some very simple issue, but realizing that took us time, and that's.
Let's say I just joined a startup today as a DevOps engineer. They point me to a bunch of microservices, like, here are the servers, here are a bunch of databases we have backing them, and there's a Kafka queue, and there's a Redis cluster, and all of these things, right? Your typical infrastructure that exists. But they have no visibility into the system's health. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do I even go about doing observability from scratch, right? A place where there is no observability, where do you start?
Yeah, I think fundamentally there are three key things, right? One is, hey, like basics. Are you monitoring your infrastructure? Like, is it like, are you monitoring your host metrics, CPU, memory? Second, if you are, like, I think everybody should monitor their applications, right? So, are you monitoring your applications, getting metrics from there, being able to monitor your databases? Just set those things in place, and I would highly recommend distributed tracing, because we have seen lots of like application related issues being solved through it much faster. So if you have not heard about like distributed tracing, have a look into it. Basically, if you are on a microservices environment, right, the problem which happens is that if you are between, if like one service is talking to the next, and A is talking to B and B is talking to C, sometimes the problems happens in C, but you see the symptoms in A, right?
Yeah.
And you sort of try, if that issue happens, you try to debug, okay, what's going wrong in A, but like A will not tell you anything,
But
because the problem
and
is
you're
in
wasting
C.
your time. Exactly. Yeah.
So you're wasting your time, right? So I think now, like earlier distributed tracing solutions used to be very esoteric and like costly, but now I think at least with SigNoz, we have enabled it. Like we have a great distributed tracing product, and like you can start monitoring your applications and start getting out of the box APM metrics, be able to click down on it and see how much time our scans taking, and like be able to drill down to the level of a query, right? So instrument your applications, instrument your databases, and monitor, I think P99 or P95, like whatever is like the metrics you want to track, like what are the latencies of your APIs, right? What are the error rates? What are the RPS? Even today, I go on call with companies, and then they ask them, hey, like what's the RPS your applications are serving? And they're like, I don't know. That's why I came to you. Like, so when I started SigNoz, my sense was that people would have been much more mature with like how they're monitoring the systems. It seems that still like lots of people needs to do like there's lots of improvement or like what you can do with Observability today with the tooling available.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like start with application metrics, start with measuring your latency, start with distributed tracing, measure the infra where you are running. I think that would be a good first step to start, and then set up proactive alerts. Right? Many people don't even have alerts in place, and then they sort of many times get like ping from customers, and then they know that hey, like something is going to go wrong, right? And like it need not be like advanced. Like you can just say that okay, I expect my services to return API calls in 500 milliseconds.
Mm-hmm.
Set alert on like hey 500 millis if it like P99 is more than 500 milliseconds and throw me an alert, right? So simple things like that. And then as you learn more about your systems, you can sort of go from there. But yeah,
Okay.
like use distributed tracing, monitor your infra and monitor your databases because databases are many times cause of the concern and go from there.
Yep. Agreed. And absolutely just start with asking the basic questions about whether the basic functionality of my application is working or not. So yeah. And that
like,
makes
monitoring error rates, basic things. What's my RPS?
Exactly. Like I remember reading about the 4 golden signals in the Google's SRE book. Very simple, like errors and traffic, monitor your traffic, and then your latency, just and the resource utilization. You have these 4 basic things in place. You already know a lot about your system, and from there you go to more advanced things, right?
It's always a very iterative work, right? You don't sort of think that hey, like I'll start at the best guidelines and then implement it. You start with the basic building blocks, get understanding of that, get a good sense of like where your applications are, and then you naturally see that hey, like okay, if you are monitoring your databases, you will know that sometimes my databases fail, and most of the time it's because of this type of queries. Then you can sort of monitor, okay, how many times are these type of queries getting fired, and then go from there.
So Pranay, what would be your advice to the aspiring entrepreneurs of today?
Yeah, I think I am still a learning entrepreneur. I am not sort of in a stage of giving any sort of advice because it's still a pretty early stage company. But like what I have learned in like past 3-4 years of entrepreneurship is that one, I've seen many people who want to do a startup like think about it a lot, right? And which is like they think that hey, is this idea good? They try to sort and generally these are like smart people, and that's why they're sort of trying to do something of their own, right? And what I've learned is that it's okay to do some sort of analysis, but you should sort of take a directional view of it that hey, like do I broadly like this domain and do I want to work on this problem space, and then start anywhere, right? Because many times what happens is that if you look from outside and try to do market research of a domain that hey, what does space domain look like? Can I build something in a space domain, right? That's pretty broad, and like if as long as you are outside, you will read market research papers and then do that, and then you will not actually start doing something. And then like the market research reports etc are like, mostly say everything, right? But like if you go to the ground realities, does a product do X, right? It's not like so the first thing is talk to users, right? And like talk generally it's good if you have good sense of like you are a user yourself. That gives you a lot of confidence because you know that okay, I have tried 5 products and this is not solved in any of the product, right? Maybe that's a small thing, but so that's why like, and we are part of YC, and that's like one of the things which YC sort of drills down into us that hey, like talk to your users, right? Because many times the customers, like the end users, have a lot deeper understanding of the pain that what you can understand from like reading papers or doing market research or doing like seeing other products which people are building, right? Yeah. So one, talk to users, and if you think that it's broadly okay to like seems interesting, you have some ideas on it, just dive into it. Don't sort of try to do too much analysis that hey, like is my idea perfect? Because your first idea will be wrong, right?
Yeah.
And but you learn something from that. Like you launch a product, you launch something, you learn from it, and then you sort of have more deeper understanding of the market. For example, as I was saying, right, when we started SigNoz, our assumption was that companies' observability tooling would have been much better because, like, hey, there are like so many tools out there which solve so many problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then there are problems in like adopting them, making them use. Are there people who can run those tools? Uh, are there like specific things which this product can do, which you get to know only if you sort of launch something, see that hey, like people are using it or not using it, right? So one, get a good understanding of the market by talking to users, not like reading market research papers, not reading product, and analyzing other products. Second, if you think that it's something which is interesting and it's like something you are looking to spend 5-10 years of your life in, just start doing something. Like just start launching something, or like even publishing a blog, right? That hey, like this is what I researched, this is what I think. That will sort of get market come to you, or like people come to you who have been thinking similarly about it, right? And then you either you will understand that hey, there's no problem to be solved, or you will get a better understanding and you know what to build next, right? If you're just stuck in not launching because you want to make it perfect, then that's the common sort of loophole where I've seen people get stuck. That hey, like I like they have done like 1 year of research, but they have not launched even a content piece or
Exactly.
a single product, right? So if you have researched 1 year, just put out what you have found, right? And then maybe somebody would tell you that hey, like this is not true, this is true, and then you sort of iterate, right? Or if like you do this for 2 years and you realize that hey, it's not working, then it's not working. You go back. You're not in a stage that hey, if I had launched it, it would have worked, and then I am not doing because I am not at a perfect stage, right? So I think bias for action is the word here. Bias for action and talking to users and getting something out in the world. If you want to launch something, do research for 3 months, publish something, or launch a small product. See what the
Mm-hmm.
market is telling you, and then go from there. If you realize that hey, there's no problem to be solved, like there are plenty of good companies to go work for again, and like come back again when you have an idea, right? But if you're just stuck that hey, like I want to do a startup, I have this idea, but I'm not sure it will work or not, that is sort of a dead zone.
Exactly. Yep. I agree with every word over there. Talking to the people who are potentially your users is the number one way to get any insight and recognize patterns. You will not find that on internet. You will not find that with chat gpt, I promise you. That is only with when you talk to your real customers, actual customers. And yes, like I have been guilty of being just too much inside my own head, like stuck with analysis paralysis, that I'm like, should I even do this? Is it worth pursuing? And before like you've already lost all the passion for that, just start doing that thing. I totally agree on that. So yeah, Pranay, it has been a very, very insightful chat with you. Thanks a lot for coming on the show today.
Yeah, and thanks for inviting me. It has been great chatting with you all too.
Yep, absolutely. Cheers.